In a world that is just so full of noise, how do we ever find any kind of clarity? Well, today we're going to unlock some of the really powerful frameworks from the world of counseling, the kind that help us navigate life's biggest, messiest complexities. So, yeah, let's just dive right in.
I mean, you know that feeling, right? You're standing at a crossroads, totally overwhelmed by a big decision, or maybe you're stuck in a conflict that just feels impossible to solve. It's a feeling we all know, that sense of being completely and totally stuck.
But what if you had a toolkit for those moments? That's really what we're going to explore, because counseling isn't just about talking, it's about using proven, structured methods to find a path forward. We're going to break down some of the most effective frameworks that counselors use, tools you can actually apply in your own life.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 4 key areas. We'll kick things off with solving problems and making decisions. Then we'll look at how we handle information. From there, we'll move into healing difficult relationships, and we'll wrap it all up with the absolutely crucial idea of cultural humility. All right, first up, solving problems and making decisions. This is all about having a system, a systematic approach for when you're at one of life's crossroads, whether that's about your career, a relationship, or even your health.
So, what do we actually mean by problem solving? Well, what I find so interesting about this definition is that it's not just about thinking. It's about making an emotional and behavioral commitment. It's this whole process of gathering and really looking at information to land on a choice you can actually truly act on.
And this isn't just, guesswork. There are formal, tested models designed to guide this whole process. We're going to zoom in on 2 that are super relevant: problem-solving therapy and motivational interviewing. So problem-solving therapy gives us this brilliant 7-step plan. First, you get crystal clear on what the problem actually is. Then you set a realistic goal. What does solved even look like? Now, the key part here, and I love this, is generating multiple solutions, not just getting stuck on one. Then you weigh them, pick one, try it out, and see what happens. It really turns problem-solving from this big moment of panic into a practical, repeatable skill. And this really highlights a key idea, right? Different tools are for different jobs. Problem-solving therapy is fantastic for building your general confidence and skills for tackling everyday stuff. Motivational interviewing, on the other hand, is like a laser beam. It's super focused on helping you commit to one single major life change. Okay, let's move on to our second section, which builds on this perfectly. We've talked about collecting information to solve problems, but we all know that information can be a bit of a double-edged sword. So how do we actually use it effectively? Here are 4 really essential principles. It all starts with respect, honoring a person's desire to learn more. But then you have to actually integrate that information into the conversation. You can't just ignore it. Critically, you also have to be willing to challenge misinformation and always keep the focus on practical outcomes. How can this knowledge actually lead to action?
And this image right here just illustrates the danger so well. We have to be aware of what's called toxic information. I mean, we live in an age of information overload, and some of it is genuinely harmful. It can promote destructive behaviors or give a totally biased, one-sided view of an issue. Being able to tell the difference is a critical skill.
Okay, so let's shift our focus a bit. We've been looking at our internal world, but now let's talk about our relationships with other people. How do we start to heal things when they get really difficult, especially when someone has been hurt?
Think about our typical responses to things like bullying or violence. A lot of the time, the goal is just punishment. But as this visual really gets at, simply punishing the problem, well, it rarely builds a bridge to reconciliation or to genuine healing for anyone who was involved. So what's the alternative? It's something called restorative practice, and its goal isn't punishment, it's restoration. The whole aim is to repair the relationship so that everyone involved can continue to be part of their community, whether that community is a school, a workplace, or even a family. And it's not just a vague idea. It follows a really clear structure. A restorative meeting walks everyone through these 5 stages, and it creates a conversation based on respect, dignity, and care. It's all about understanding the harm, finding a willingness to make things right, and then deciding together how to restore that dignity and move forward. And that brings us to our final section, which honestly provides the foundation for everything else we've just discussed: counseling with cultural humility. This is all about understanding a person within their own world. This is such a fundamental point. The way we understand our problems, the way we make our decisions, even how we think about what healing means, it's all framed by the culture or cultures we come from. It's not some kind of optional add-on. It's the lens through which we see absolutely everything. And look, Culture isn't this one single monolithic thing. We can think about it in layers. First, you have these broad world cultures, those deep-rooted traditions like religion or ethnicity that shape our basic assumptions. And then, there are the many, many subcultures we all belong to, based on social class, gender, community, and so much more. So with all this complexity, what's the guiding principle? How do you navigate it all? Well, it boils down to this one simple but incredibly profound word: respect. Without genuine respect for the way a person lives their life and what they believe, no meaningful help or connection can ever happen. And respect isn't passive. It's not just about being polite. It's about being actively curious. When you approach someone with a genuine desire to learn from them, you send these really powerful messages that they matter, that their perspective has value. And that's what builds trust. And here's the crucial takeaway from all this. Cultural awareness isn't some kind of special mode you just switch on when someone seems obviously different from you. It has to be an always-on lens. Because culture is always relevant to how we experience our problems and how we find our solutions. So we've just walked through some incredibly powerful toolkits for problem solving, for healing relationships, and for just understanding each other better. These are the frameworks. But it all kind of leaves us with a bigger question, doesn't it? How do we actually build a world where everyone has the access, the safety, and the space to really use them?